I heard you got hit by a scooter a few days ago. Not exactly the ideal pre-podcast warm-up. How are you feeling now?
Now I'm good. It took a couple of days to kind of get all the limbs in work condition, but some of the guys doesn't respect the red lights. And when it gives for us walkers, yeah, it happens.
Yeah, yeah.
Tourists, especially tourists here in Thailand, have a tendency to sometimes in the evenings not being so attentive. Just diplomatic.
Glad you're fine.
Yeah.
So, you've worked, Bjorn, across Sweden, Sri Lanka, India, Indonesia, and today you're talking about something most leaders avoid. What's happened when they're no longer needed?
Leaders. There will always be a need for leaders. I still believe that even if AI comes in and people thinks that AI should take over uh, the whole leadership roles because automation, there are things that AI will never be able to do, or it will take a long time until they can actually walk into a room, read the room, see how people react, see how body language are kind of going around in the room and things like that. You need a leader in that place.
That's fascinating. So, let's
Yeah.
get into it. The following is a conversation with Björn Vikard, the leadership advisor and former chief executive officer with global experience in building systems and developing leaders across cultures. This is Pre-Zero Sports Talk podcast, and I'm your host, Sid Bensalah. Today, we delve into leadership systems and succession to uncover genuine stories and insights that truly matter. Thank you for tuning in, subscribing, and supporting the show. Your support and financial contributions helps us bring authentic voices, real stories, and conversation that goes beyond the game. If you'd like to support the show, please check the episode description for more. Bjorn, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. Great to be here.
You had a fascinating journey from Sweden to multiple continents, stepping into leadership roles without formal training, learning through real pressure. And we're going to talk about that pressure. I'd love to start here. Can you take us back to one moment early in your career where leadership really hit you, where you realized I'm responsible now?
That the first time it hit me was actually in Sri Lanka, but it has hit me different in different cultures because it's every country is different. But in Sri Lanka, it hit me because as a leader in Sweden, we kind of go in and we say, okay, this is what needs to be done.
Mhm.
And if you're only nodding, then you expect them to have understood the message. In Sri Lanka, nodding can mean that okay or not sure what you say, but they don't speak up because it's not good to say that they don't know. And also the culture is that if I tell them to do something, they take one step, then they expect me to say the next step. And
Right.
that really hit me because I was used of having leadership's role in Sweden, US as an example, and or in Europe. It's kind of easy. We speak more the same language and we have the same understanding. And culture-wise, we are close.
Mhm.
But coming over to Asia was that's when I realized that leadership is more than what we learned by looking at other leaders in Sweden, as an example. As I never had a formal training at that point, I had to learn by doing or watching other people actually lead. So I was kind of copy a lot from the leaders that I had. And what I see today is that, yeah, it created a lot of stress and headache for many years.
Right. What's one early leadership failure that stayed with you?
One of the biggest failures that I sometimes still struggle with it's is listening.
Mm,
It, it's easier, you know the expression, I hear what you're saying, but I'm not listening.
right.
And when you're coming in and you have a task, you have a goal, and you want to achieve it, this kind of performance based, a lot of leadership roles. Then when you're talking to people and you don't let them finish, so you hear what I'm saying and you make a decision or an assumption very quickly instead of listening to what they're actually saying. That's one of the biggest issues I have had over the years,
Mm,
especially when
mm,
you go from different cultures.
mm. What did that experience teach you realistically that no book or training could?
Uh, there's consequence to everything that you do and what you say. There's always a consequence.
Mm,
And by that, I mean, if you're not doing, if you not have kind of understood culture before you start leading them to understand this is kind of how it works in this country, this is how it works in this country, you will make a lot of mistakes. Some mistakes are easy to repair, some take much, much longer because you can have lost the trust for a long time before they actually come back to you.
mm. And what you said earlier that you try to apply what you learned in Scandinavia, mainly in Sweden, to other countries. But does that really work? Meaning, can we just use wherever we learn in a different culture with its own standard and then try to replicate the same thing in a different country?
I would say no. When I left Sweden, I would have said yes, but
Mm,
I've learned through the mistakes that I have done, and I've been fortunate to connect with a lot of people overseas, uh, Scandinavians and local people that I kind of are almost like family members with, that kind of have taught me the cultures. I have
right.
people here in Thailand that have expats that have been here for 30 years that have gone through all of the things that happens when you're a new
Mhm,
expat.
mhm,
In India, I was lucky to have very good people to that I work with. I got to know people in the building that I lived in that was Indians that had worked overseas, so we had the chance to compare notes, if we say like that. And
mhm.
having, to call it mentors, is critical when you come out as
Yeah.
new, and especially if you come as in a small company. If you come as
Mhm,
companies like uh, Volvo, as I worked for Volvo earlier, they give you a training when you go out about the
right.
culture, how to speak, how to
Mhm,
shake hands, and everything.
mhm.
But when you're coming with smaller company, there is nothing. So it's like
Yeah.
crash and burn kind of scenarios that
Mm,
teach you. But when you start connecting with the local people in Thailand, I'm fortunate because I'm married here, so I have the support from the family to kind of help me through all the culture stuff.
mhm.
And my wife has worked for foreigners since she started to work. She understands a lot of the mistakes that we do.
Right.
And then she's like, no, you cannot do that. You cannot do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so say that going to a new country, it's really important to read up about the culture, not just the city where you're going, that is a great city, or they have schools for kids and stuff like that. You need to understand the different religions, uh, the behaviors and things like that, because it makes a huge difference when you come out and you meet someone.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you share, Bjorn, a moment where your approach completely failed in another country or where you are, for instance?
In Indonesia, I came in. And my role was really performance based. And I was speaking to them as I had been speaking to people in Sri Lanka, and I made them worried. I didn't give them confidence when I was talking to them,
Hmm.
but uh, for them, when I came and started to talk, I spoke very performance based, task, task,
Right.
task. But they are not used to that. They want to have a relationship first.
Hmm.
So you need to grow relations, and it's pretty common here in Asia that people really value the relationships, and from the relationship they give you their trust. So if you skip that part, I did that in India. I went straight for we need to do, we need to do, we need to do.
Mm.
Ah, then things are not happening. But when you go in and you start asking them about their families, all of these things, then it moves over to, yeah, they can see that I'm I am a serious person, but
Mm.
I'm authentic, I care at the same time.
Right.
And then it becomes a big difference. And
Yeah.
it I would say that's also one of the biggest, if we call it biggest mistakes that I have done when I came to Asia.
What did that teach you about human behavior?
Uh, Actually, it taught me a lot. Uh, it taught me that I need to focus on the human first and kind of the results after.
Mm.
And that's came back. That's kind of how I started to work with the self-awareness, because if you don't know yourself, you cannot lead someone else. And if you don't understand which weaknesses you have, then you don't know how you're going to react to other people. So
Mm.
that kind of taught me that it's easy to look short term, but
Mm.
if you really want to have something long term, you really need to build relations, and you need to build them authentic.
Right. Right. Bjorn, you define leadership as trust, character, and self awareness. Why those three particularly?
That's to me, it's the foundation of leadership. If you don't have those, you are not going to become a good leader at all. If you don't understand yourself, which is uh, the self awareness,
Hmm.
how are you going to lead someone? If you don't can put your trust in yourself to actually be a normal human being with feelings, it's easy to say that I'm always strong. I can do it. But you know that certain things that you have to do you have never done before. It's very stressful. But you're trying not to show it because you don't want to look like a failure. And a lot of the leaders doesn't want to kind of show that they have a weakness.
Mm.
But a weakness can be a strength at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you go on character, that's a foundation. It's about ethics, as an
Mm.
example. And if we're looking today, I think character is one of the most important traits that a leader has to have.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. I don't think can anyone perform at a high level in those positions. It doesn't matter which business, including sports. I agree with you. And going back to what we said earlier about trying to apply the leadership skills and experience and what you learn as well in Scandinavia and Sweden to another country, that's resonated a lot with me. I had the same experience traveling around the world and try to use what you learned. And again, in the sports industry, we are driven by results, you know.
Yeah,
But
we all
then
are.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And what I missed earlier, it's the human connection. Because we don't like small talks and we don't like talking about our private lives, especially in the workplace. And you say, okay, my private life is outside. Here,
Yeah.
it's I need to be professional. And we quite often we fail on that because it's kind of a trap where you say, okay, how do I balance the two? You know, and like you said, you cannot. expect result if your team or the one you are leading they don't trust you, or let's say the trust is not there, which is a fundamental piece to start with. And in some countries, like based on what you said, Bjorn, and I fully agree with you, uh, you need to find, put it this way, not to find ways, you need to embrace to try to understand the culture.
Yeah.
It is fundamental. If you miss that, forget it. You're going to spend years and maybe try and fail and things like that. But I think the first lesson from my experience, before doing anything else, try to embrace the culture. Go
Oh
out,
yeah.
see what they do, what they eat, how they think, how they solve a problem, what is important for them, what kind of values they, and then if you do that and you understand that and you respect it, because you have to respect the local culture and the way they live their lives, the way they think, etc., etc. I think after that, I think it's going to be easy. Yeah.
It will be easier. Easy, probably not the right word, but easier.
Yeah.
No, but
Yeah.
you have a very, very good point there, because I myself have always been very private. I don't really share about my personal life,
Hmm.
because it's a personal life.
Mm.
And Swedes, we are kind of like, it's not that we are cold-hearted, but if we are friends, then we share everything. If we don't really know people, we're not really sharing. You might
Absolutely.
have you might have seen that when you moved
Yeah. Yeah.
to Sweden.
Yeah.
And in US they are pretty open with sharing. They share a lot. And
But quite often it's too much.
yeah, uh, maybe not so authentic either, always.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I lived there for almost 10 years, so I kind of got in a little bit to the sharing.
Yeah.
But when I came to Sri Lanka in the beginning, I know I had problems with my employees because they didn't know anything about me.
Mhm.
They had no idea that I got engaged. They had no idea that until after I got married that I was married.
Mm.
And and I said, it doesn't affect your work if you know it or not. But it does. For them,
Mm.
it's like, if you cannot tell us that you have got engaged, which in Asia is a big thing. For
Yeah.
Swedish people, we kind of
Yeah.
announce it, but we're not making big parties and stuff.
No
In
one
Asia,
cares.
more or less, to be honest. But in Asia, it's a big
It's
family
a
thing,
big deal.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
they announce it in newspapers and everything. It's like
Yeah.
the big deal. And there I come, and I don't tell my employees that I have, and they were really upset with me, and I didn't understand why. For me, it was not a big deal.
Mm.
I met my wife, it's great, but
Yeah.
why would you need to know it? But for them, it was like, I don't trust them. So yeah, no,
Yeah.
sharing, I have learned to share, but it took a while.
Yeah. Yeah. And it goes to sometime to the simple things in life. And on that, there's speaking the language or making an effort to learn the local language. Does it help, Bjorn? In terms of
Yes.
getting the confidence, in terms of getting the trust.
If you can speak local language is always a big plus. I never uh, in Sri Lanka I never learned speaking, but I was pretty good in guessing what they were saying. So when they said
Okay.
something in Sinhala, I answered in English. So they actually believed that I understood 100%, which I didn't. But I understood what subjects because I mix in English words in between. But in India, I never understood a single word, and I was only there for a year, so I didn't bother to learn it either, as it was only a 1 year contract.
Mhm.
In Indonesia, a lot of the words are same as Swedish because the Dutch has been there, and a lot of
Aha.
Dutch words. So if you want to go to a
Interesting.
pharmacy, you go to an apotheke.
Hmm.
We say it's it's pretty much the same. If you need a lawyer, you go to the advocate.
Advocate, yeah. Interesting.
And and the walk path by the road, they call trottoir.
Trottoir, yeah,
What?
which is French, by the way.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you see, so there you could understand at least a little bit when it was not technical speaking. But the company
Okay.
I worked for there was a German company, or actually it was from Bavaria. Have to mention it's from Bavaria, not Germany. They're
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
sensitive.
They're
But
very, very sensitive. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So from that point, everybody was speaking English, and in Indonesia, all the employees wanted to learn English. So it's
Mm.
when everybody wants to learn English, they don't want to speak local Bahasa with you because they only want to train their English.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there I failed to learn it as well. Thailand, I've been too spoiled because my wife is so good in English and her family is pretty good in English. So
Yeah. That's the
uh,
problem, you know? It's
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So I have told her I will learn it, but she kind of gave up after 10 years.
But I think the basic things maybe just start with the greeting words or
Oh yeah,
sentences, you know?
I always do the greeting,
Yeah.
and when they see that you do the greeting and you put up the hands,
Right.
then
Right.
you have a complete different acceptance. Then they're
Yeah.
okay that you speak English after
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. It's so
But this is
simple and yeah, it is so simple and yet so effective and impactful.
yeah,
Yeah. Let's shift gear, Bjorn, and talk about
yeah.
systems, which is dear to you. Why do so many organizations depend on one leader instead of systems?
It's pretty easy to start off when you start a company or you have a strong leader. Uh, that person becomes the system.
Mm.
So if you're looking at it and you're looking at smaller companies, especially, they build everything around the founder. It's Ferguson as an example. I can use Ferguson as that's a
Mhm. Mhm.
famous sports for a great
Yeah.
football team called Manchester United.
Yeah.
He was there for 27 years,
Mhm.
and he was integrated in all levels. So when he left, Manchester United started to lose games, and they started to replace the coaches one by one. I
Right.
think they changed 4 or 5 coaches in 5 years,
Mhm.
and that's because they don't have a system in place. So who's making the decisions? Why are they making decisions? What authority do they have to make decisions? What are the level of decisions that they can take? Having a decision matrix or an authorization matrix would have helped from that point. Because when he left, he took all that knowledge with him. He
Mhm.
was one person that had all knowledge. He had most of the context with the other organizations and everything. And when you take that out, especially if you do it quickly, uh, then it becomes a vacuum. That's why you need to have systems in place so you actually have something that still exists when the person retire or if he change job or he gets promoted. But if you don't start doing it, and what I have read on the Blacks, the New Zealand team,
All Blacks. Yeah.
All Blacks,
The
yeah,
rugby. Yeah.
yeah, they have these. They already take the senior players to train the young players. So
Mhm.
they building up the same system and they do it constantly. So when the senior leaves, that whole system that they have and thinking and all of it, it's still there. So it's easy for someone to leave in All Blacks because they have a working system with processes in place, even if they might not be documented, which I hope they are,
Mhm.
but they actually do it, and they do it with all new people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they make sure that they understand what's the values, all of those things. is there, and they make sure that everybody follows it.
Really interesting, and thanks for sharing the example of Alex Ferguson, what he built in Manchester United and the legacy he left as well.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to digest and get my head around, because that example of Alex Ferguson, we see it every day in various organizations and industries.
Yeah.
We spoke earlier about one key component, which is character, and he had a character, Alex Ferguson. But then talking about the system, and you use as well the All Blacks, the New Zealand famous rugby team, which dominated the game for many, many decades, and still, still they do.
Yeah.
Now it's
Yeah.
between South Africa and, you know,
Yeah.
which as well they're really good. But
Yeah.
one thing that is quite obvious is Alex Ferguson as a coach, as a leader. My God, he had a unique character,
Yeah.
and bringing famous known coaches, football coaches, to take charge when he left, when Alex left. It's not easy to fill up the shoes of someone like Alex Ferguson. It's kind of hard. And I'm wondering, Bjorn, even if the system is there, and correct me here if I'm wrong, even if there is a strong system that the team or the organization they've been following for many years and it worked, but if you don't have the right leader with the right, how I say, character, persona, which is important, the drive, yeah, it can make or break an organization, you
Oh
know?
yeah.
Uh,
I
yeah.
think that when he left, that organization broke down because it was not just him who left.
Mm.
His next level of coaches that he had under him, some of them left as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's not just the head honcho that leaves,
Mm,
it's the next level that disappears as well. And as
mm,
they never took any decisions without him being involved, then even if they stayed, they would have had big troubles to actually drive and run the team because they are not used to taking decisions. They have never been able to train that. And I think that's where All Blacks comes in
mm.
because they do this.
Right.
It was a few years ago they were in the World Cup and All Blacks had been winning year after year after year. They lost. They go back home. Everybody expect now we're firing the coach because
The coach, yeah.
that's the common thread in the sport industry. If
Yeah, which is a
something goes,
mistake.
yeah,
Which is a mistake
but
because the decision makers they react on the headlines, on what the newspaper are saying, the fan base, etc., instead of
yeah,
focusing more internally.
yeah. But All Blacks, they went home. They took 2 years. They took care of every issues they had. Why they lost that game
Hmm.
with the same coach, came back and they started to win again.
Right.
They did what no one else was doing, and they're doing what we try to do in the manufacturing industry. We don't really fire bosses unless they have done something really, really bad.
Mm.
We try to kind of give them more training and then train the next level so everybody can step up and still growing.
Hmm.
But unfortunately, I remember when I lived in Boston. Of course, Boston Bruins is a great team to
Hmm.
watch.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had 17 wins in a row, and Boston Globe, the biggest newspaper, were saying this is the best coach we have ever had. Then they had one loss. First, next day was fire the coach. It's like one loss.
One loss. Yeah.
There is no gray zone for them. And I think
No.
that kind of comes back to succession planning. And I think that Manchester United really, if I can say it, really screwed up on that one because
Mm.
when they have had someone for 27 years that has been so strong as he was, and they know that he's going to leave. They are not planning to bring in someone that can build up the confidence with the players or the other coaches before he leaves. They wait until he leaves, then they start hiring. Then you get these gaps, and that's when it starts crumbling.
Have you seen a business collapsed completely because of that?
Not completely, but I have seen a couple of businesses that have lost uh, a lot. I know one business in US that I worked with. Uh, the father was like the spider in the company. He worked until he passed away. The day he passed away, he had two sons and a daughter. No one was ready to take over because they didn't have the key contacts for all the customers. They didn't really work with them. They wasn't really involved in all the decisions. So suddenly they have to start taking decisions. And they went from, if I remember correctly, it was 44 million US dollars in sales per year, and they ended up with 17. So that's how much they lost because they lost so many customers. Because when he disappears, customer was saying we need to start dual sourcing because now the competence is gone.
Yeah. Why do founders, based on what you said now, struggle to let go even when they know they should go?
I think it goes back to everybody want to feel needed. And if you have started something from the ground and you have built it up to a multi-million dollar business, to have someone take over without they are not doing exactly what you want. You feel like, can I really trust that he's going to continue or she's going to continue my legacy? What's going to happen? And that happens even in normal organizations. There are managers that doesn't want to go home because they don't trust their deputies. So there are many managers or founders that never takes vacation because they believe that the company will not be able to run if they are not there. The misconcept is that then they will have this situation that I was talking about when the leader he passed away. Everybody will pass away sooner or later. That's a fact. But if you're not planning for a successor, then you plan to fail. Because if you don't train someone that's going to take over, and hopefully they will do a better job than yourself. If you don't have that mindset, you will try to keep and protect your role that you have.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Do you believe, Bjorn, based on your experience, the example we talked about, do you believe leaders they need from day one or at some point from the beginning they need to include this concept of succession early on
Oh yeah,
instead of no having a plan at all or leave completely that plan? You spoke about the Alex Ferguson example.
yeah.
Leave it completely at the end and then you stuck, you don't know what to do.
I strongly believe that. And I give you an example. When I started in Sri Lanka, I implemented AS 9100. So we started to get audits from big companies. Airbus, big French company, as you know,
Yeah.
came to audit us. And one of the critical questions they have is succession planning. Because in aerospace, you you more or less, if you lose, then you lose a critical person, you lose a lot of time, maybe safety, etc. And they came and audited me 9 months after I moved to Sri Lanka. And I said, yeah, I have one. And they said, you already have one. I said, pointed at the guy that was standing next to me. I said, yeah, I hired him to be my successor. And they're like,
Fantastic.
are you going to leave? And I said, no, no, no. But I'm training him now because he has never been in aerospace, and aerospace has a lot of details that you don't learn overnight. So I said, I got him so whenever I'm going to leave, there is someone that takes over. And Airbus was like surprised that uh, someone actually were thinking like that. And I said, but I worked in aerospace for over 20 years at that point. And they like, oh yeah, they could see the relation that if you have the experience, then you know that you have to do it.
Mm.
So we had already introduced succession planning for all critical positions in that company.
Right. Yeah.
We got very
Yeah.
good scoring.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating what you're saying. Although that company, even they told you they were surprised that you have a plan where you appointed someone that one day he or she might replace you. Have you seen the series Succession? I think it was on
No,
Netflix.
yeah, no, I haven't seen it yet.
Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. You know,
Yeah,
it's one of my favorite
yeah, no, it's on
TV.
my list to watch.
Yeah, and you know what, Bjorn, listening to you and trying to remember that TV series, sometimes it's brutal. You know, the founder, the head of the family, and all his kids fighting to be one day appointed by the father to take a lead to success him basically, and yeah, it's just amazing, you know, and it's somehow, yes, it's a TV series, but it portray the human mentality, the human persona, you know, because and what you said, it happens every day. Almost 80 plus percent people are scared that someone will take their position, are scared that someone will take their role of a leader, you know, and we don't want, you know. And then, yeah, which is, I don't know how do you train someone, because we spoke earlier about character trust within the leadership. But how do you train someone that at some point he or she, their time will be off, you know? So you need to think and plan. It could be in the military, it could be in the sports industry, it could be in any industry. Or could be in a president leading a country in political party. Quite often we love that leadership seat and we try to hold on that seat with our teeth. You
Yeah,
know, not sure how do you train someone to at some point you need to let go.
yeah. I think that in in certain cases, it's good to have a fixed retirement age, even for small business owners, not not just employees. Because if I'm looking at the gentleman I worked for in Sri Lanka when I came down there, he's 89 this year.
Mhm.
He's still working, but he
There you
doesn't
go.
have anyone. He doesn't have anyone that can take over because
Mm,
his daughter has no interest in that
to
business.
take over. Yeah.
Yeah, she has her own businesses, which is more wellness. So she doesn't want to have a production company.
Mhm.
So he doesn't have any sons. He only have a daughter, and sooner or later he will pass. What will happen with the companies?
Right.
Most likely, they will end up in being sold to some other owner that
Mm,
takes over. Because there is he refused training someone
mm,
because as long as he can do it, he will do it.
mhm,
And I strongly believe it comes back to the fear of not being needed.
mm,
And a lot of us, I think all of us, needs to feel needed in one way or another. It doesn't have to be uh, that we have to run a big company, but I mean, I want to be needed by my wife, as an example, and I'm sure you want to feel needed from your family as well. But you have to balance it. To a certain point, you have to decide that my son is going to take over at this point. Now I have to start training him or her.
I think it go back to the way you've been brought up, to your values and to your why and purpose in life, because having this feeling of being needed for what, wanting more and more productivity, more profit, more scalability, and it never it's like we are never satisfied. But the minute you find your why, your inner why and your own purpose, then it's easy. Is it hard for you, or sometimes have you faced, based on your consultancy work, is it like a hard discussion to have with an owner, a founder, president about succession and about letting go?
Yeah, there are few that sees it as an opportunity to have someone to discuss it with, because they don't want to discuss it with the family, because then if they have several kids, then the fighting starts. Who's going to be the next? But at the same time, you have founders that they don't really have anyone to
Yeah.
hand over to,
Mm.
and they often really want to talk about it because they don't know how to start a conversation. So if you go in and you say, I see a risk for you, who's going to take over when you decide to retire? Then they're like, I don't know what to do. And those are the easy ones to talk to because they want to talk. But then you have those, like my old boss, that he cannot see himself not being at work.
Mhm.
They are much more difficult because they have nothing else in life. So if you have hobbies or you have a dream that you want to go out and travel around the world and things like that, it's easier to talk to people that have, they see that there has to be a next step.
Right.
But
Yeah.
the ones that don't see that there is a next step, uh, those are the hard ones. And
The
when you
hard
start
ones. Yeah.
talking to them, they don't always appreciate you.
Hmm.
But at the same time, if you don't take the discussion, there will be a Ferguson issue after a while.
Right. Right. Thanks for sharing, Bjorn. Let's give you now a task. Since we're
Okay.
talking about Alex Ferguson and sport. Bjorn, if you walk into a sport team or a sports organization, could be a federation, or what would you assess first?
I would ask them what would happen if the coach leaves tomorrow.
Hmm.
So if you ask that question to all levels, you will have different answers. And in the end of the day, it's probably in a sports organization, it's probably the most important question. And I go back to Ferguson. No one asked that question, I guess. I wasn't there, so I'm guessing. Because if they
Hmm.
would have asked the question, what will happen when Sir Ferguson is leaving?
Right. Yeah.
No one saw the consequences of his retirement decision.
Hmm.
So if I would assess the critical people first in the sport. I mean, if you're looking at, you have critical players for future, you have coaches, you have managers, medical team, etc. You will look at what would happen if some of these kind of blocks that has to be there to make this sport team or this federation successful. If you pull one, what will happen? So then you have at least a chance to understand where are the problems. It could be succession planning, or it might be that you just have to uh, change processes. You might have to go in and use AI to automate certain things that's doing manually right now, but it doesn't have to be doing manually. That's where I would start.
Right. Let's use another case, Scandinavian, or mainly the Swedish soccer football, soccer in the
Mm.
US, football in outside the US. Knowing here in Sweden we have a very strong grassroots base, which is from as young as maybe 6, 7. Wherever you go in Sweden, it's full, it's packed, you know. So we see a lot of parents putting their kids into football. But then the minute the pyramid, from the base, we have a strong base. But the minute we try to go up, you know, to the elite, it's like we fail all the time. It's not a question of resources. It's not a question of base. It's not a question of maybe system, I don't know, you know. It's not a question of infrastructure, what is available. If it's winter, we train indoor, and then the minute the weather is nice, it's outdoor. But we never ever find a way to be with the top. So, from your perspective of leadership and love to the sport, because I can see we've been talking about the sport, what's your take, Bjorn?
Uh, which now I haven't been in Sweden for so many years, but
Mm.
I I would say that my first thought goes into that when we start getting up to the next level, when you have done the kid things and parents thing, and you go to the next,
Mhm.
it demands a lot of these kids, and a lot of kids doesn't want to do it because the generations we have now doesn't have the same work ethics, doesn't have the same kind of willingness to do things hard. It, they want things easier.
Right.
Uh, for parents today are so much more busy than they were when I grew up. Parents could be there all the time.
Mm.
Uh, but in the early 70s, even if they had to work overtime, it was not like the hours that people has to put in nowadays when there's higher expectations and things. And we always had mom and dad so they could share. Now it's unfortunately it's kids has to deal with they have parents in two locations, so it makes it logistically more. So I think that it's it's harder for people to feel that they can be successful
Mm.
because it takes much more work, both from them and the parents, to actually reach to the next level. You have to have a good support from home to be able to grow. In most
Right.
cases, it's not that in every case. There are people that succeed even if they don't have parents. But I think it's much tougher the environment for people today to
Mm.
be able to go to the next level, and the money part that they have to spend uh, is so much more. I worked with a lady in Sweden. Her son was a hockey player.
Mhm.
Everything was fine when he was in the local team in Trollhättan. But when he
Mhm.
started to grow, then they had to drive him to different locations and put him in school in different locations. And now he's a pro in the US. But the effort that he had to put in, but also the effort that the family that has to support him. And the parents were running their own businesses. So they had to have extra people to be able to support the son to become a hockey player.
Mm.
And I think a lot of parents are not willing to do
Mm.
that any longer, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with you. When you look at all sports, team sports, individual sports, winter sports as well, Sweden has a very talented athletes. Fortunately, they reach the peak from an elite standpoint, and which will yield to good results. And when I say good results, depend which sport. Even in the Olympic Games, summer or winter, mainly Winter Olympic Games, Sweden ranked quite nicely during the last Winter Olympics in Milan, Cortina in Italy. But when you compare it to other athletes, you feel like there is something missing where on a personal achievement they achieved something, but there is that disappointment of a reward. Could be financial reward comparing to their peer in the US or in France, for example, or any other country. But here I feel like it's more driven from a personal standpoint than anything else. So, and quite often I was pointing into the system itself because there is so many good coaches, there is so many people practicing sport, and sport is part of the culture, and you see it everywhere. But then when it comes to elite, on when you compete and you represent your country or your team on the top stage worldwide, we get there, but the outcome is different, put it this way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and since we're talking about leadership and systems and things like that, it's a question that keeps coming back to me quite often every time we see Scandinavian team and mainly Sweden reaching a World Cup or they get qualified, depend on which sport, then we are quite disappointed. And when you compare apple to apple, for example, the Winter Olympic, Norway, they took the first place last time in China in 2020, and now this time in Italy in Winter Olympics. When you compare Sweden, 10 million people living here, and Norway, which is smaller, and yet again they lead USA, China, like the big nations, and you ask the question, how is it? So it's not about grit, it's not about how I say, commitment and things like that. It's something else. And sometimes I ask myself, maybe their system is better than the Swedish system. Yeah.
It could be. I still believe that the Swedish system is a good system, but I also saw a couple of interviews. One Australian guy he wins most of the gold medal for the jumping.
The freestyle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he said without one extra job, he trains every single day, but he has to work because the sport give him money. He's on
Yeah.
Facebook and do all the reels and stuff constantly. That makes him survive. So when you're saying rewards, I think that we are not paying a lot of the people who do these elite sports. When it comes to hockey, when it comes to football, these guys are earning money because there's a lot of sponsor bases there. But a lot of the other sports, like swimming and all of these things, is not really a lot of people that goes watching compared to football. And
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
they don't have enough of sponsors. Even if I think that what they do in the pools are amazing, and how they can swim fast, or they can take a jump in and do all these saltomotors and all of it. I don't know how they survive all of this, but it's not enough of sponsor as far as I can see.
But then, when they represent the country on Olympic Games, for example, since you mentioned swimming, the last Paris Olympic last year, our swimmer Sarah, she won a couple of gold medals. She was quite pleased with her performance. Or the last Winter Olympic, we won so many gold medals and silver and bronze as well. But then, as an athlete, when you see your friend from a different country, that they get a bonus, a reward, financial reward
Yeah.
for that podium, you know, when you compare yourself to others and you ask yourself, why not? Why our system, it does not reward us? Because those athletes, they work really hard, Bjorn. They train minimum 42 hours a week to be at that level. And if you are lucky, you are not injured and you are on your top physical and mental preparation, and if you are selected and you do your best and you cross the finishing line first and you get on the podium, but then you see the others, you compare yourself. That's yeah. I'm not sure if this is back to the system itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, it's fascinating and interesting to discuss this topic
Yeah.
and to
No.
try to learn.
Yeah, because I think from a leadership perspective, the leaders, the coaches that's around all the elites that we have, they really want them to earn decent amount of money and get the bonuses,
Yeah.
because it should be fair in a way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I believe that if someone do something for the country, they should have something for it. And especially if they win the gold medal, I think it's fair that they get a bonus, because we have a salary in business.
Mm.
If we do something good, we either get a bonus or we get a raise.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that system, if that's applied to other countries, I think it would be fair that Sweden started to kind of look at applying it as well, because they do the same, if we call it a job.
Yeah.
If you do swimming for Sweden or if you do it for US or China, it's the same job.
Yeah.
There should be a balance in reward systems. I fully agree there.
Yeah. Good. So you mentioned that every level in an organization sees the same problem differently. Can you give a real example? Because we were talking earlier about trust, character, and the team dynamics.
Yeah, I mean, if you go into a business as an example, and you're asking the boss, what's the problem? The boss will say, oh, it's the shift leader. He's not good enough. When you go and ask the manager for the shift leader, he says, oh, there's nothing wrong with him, but he doesn't get the right data. When you go to the shift leader, he says, I don't have enough of people. And when you go to the operators, they say, we don't get material. So it's the same problem, but you have 4 different views why it is a problem. And in organizations, it's quite common that the managers or the top guys, they never go out on the shop floor.
Mhm.
In the lean world, or it really comes from Toyota, they have what they call Gemba, which is go out and see the truth.
Mhm.
I learned some years ago, you use the Gemba, but you're not really asking what's the problem. You go out, you speak to the people, they will share what the problems are. They already know how to fix them.
Right.
You just give them the tools to fix them.
Mhm.
But if you never go out, you never know what's really happening. So
Mhm.
in Indonesia, as an example, I went out 3 times per day. I walked the floor in the factories. And I knew when the machine was down before the production manager knew that the machine was down. I knew when the machine has been standing stopped because of maintenance haven't been there yet. Because I was down there and I was seeing what's happening. And it's the same, I guess, in if we use Ferguson as an example again. I like Ferguson.
We love Ferguson, Alex Ferguson.
Yeah, it's like, but if he's never down talking to the players or looking at them when they play, he will have no understanding what's happening.
Yeah, you're
Because
right.
then he has maybe 2-3 coach levels in between that will tell him this is not good or this is what happened. But he doesn't see it. And I think that's one of the danger when you're a leader, that it's easy to sit in the office, get an email or someone calling you saying this going on, and you say, okay, take care of it. But then when you walk down, the story is completely different.
It is different. Yeah, you're right.
So,
Right.
so I think that's why I'm saying it's different on different levels. Because when you go in and you start assessing a company, if you start at the top as an example, then you hear their story, and then you kind of go down, and then when you come to the shop floor, you already have this assumption of what's wrong, because the top guy has told you that this is the problem. But then when you come down, you realize that he hasn't been on the shop floor. I can see what's happening because they're telling me these are the problems, and then they show me.
Right.
The good thing with the operators or players, they will always share, because it's pain for them. If they don't get help to kind of fix it, it's very painful. So they gladly tell you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of the way I'm looking at it, because you have all the different levels, and a lot of times they will say what kind of is best for them, or they feel that this is what you want to hear. Because if you come as a expat director and you go down on the shop floor, people treat you differently, and they think that you will only want to hear the positive. And I'm happy to hear positive things, but at the same time, I want to hear the true story.
The
Because
true
if I
story.
don't know,
The issues. Yeah.
yeah, if I don't know the issues, I have no way of giving them the support they need to fix the issues.
Bjorn, when trust is broken within an organization, within a team, how do you rebuild it?
It kind of depends on the team, the willingness to come back and rebuild it. When I lost the trust of the people because I didn't listen good enough in Indonesia, as an example, I was myself really like, how am I going to do it? A friend of mine said, the only thing you can do is to apologize. Start with that. If that's not working, you need to do something different. So I brought in all the people that I inadvertently had offended without even knowing that I had offended them. And I apologized. I explained that how I had reasoned with the way I was talking, and that how my culture background haven't understood that this is actually not suitable the way I'm operating. And I have listened to what you have said, and this is how I will do forward. Some people accepted the apology. Some people, it took a couple of weeks until they saw that I was living up to the words that I have actually said and promised, how to speak to them and how to kind of understanding their culture, and not think that I can use Swedish culture in everything. But it took time. But
Yeah.
building trust when it's broken is always difficult, because
Difficult,
you have the culture impact.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
I was almost going to say it's easier when you have that as an excuse, but you cannot use it as an excuse, because I come home and I told my wife that I behaved stupidly, because it's my fault that I didn't actually read up on the culture here. It's not their fault, but I failed them. So you have to take it to yourself.
And that's the right approach, actually. When you question yourself, and that's the right approach. With all your experience and with all the experience we accumulate during our career, from leading a team, and the outcome of that, is it something easy to use that experience when you start a family, within a family, or it's or it's a completely different challenge?
Yeah, you should definitely have a call with my
Be-
wife.
because we're talking, yeah, we're talking about
Uh,
leadership, we're talking
yeah,
about system, we're talking about leading a team, advising an owner
yeah.
or a chairman, and then here we are, we go back home to our families, and it's a leadership as well. So
Oh yeah,
yeah.
no, it is. It's completely different, and it has different
Yeah,
consequences. But yeah,
yeah,
no, I mean, I made a lot of mistakes with my wife because
we all did. Bjorn,
yeah,
let me put it straightforward here. I challenge anyone. I challenge anybody. You know, it is leadership, yes, and quite often we say leadership start at home.
yeah,
Yeah.
and my as I had I married quite late. I was like 40 when I got married, so
Hmm.
I was quite set in the way. I had system for everything, even where you put the utensils in the drawer, how it's going to be laid out. I had like the whole 5S, everything, how
It's
everything is
it's
sorted. When
yeah.
it's like yesterday, my wife was saying to her mother, my mother-in-law, that I cooked today, so Björn he cleans up, and
Mhm.
she was like, so if he cooks, he cleans up. And my wife was like, no, 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 I clean up if he cooks. And she's like, he will never allow you to do that. You create a chaos like cannot be described.
Yeah.
And she translated it to me, and I said, yes, mommy, you're right. I clean up.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds familiar. I can tell you that sounds really
Yeah.
familiar.
And
Yeah.
my wife, and it's kind of a lot of the Thai people I met, they are very flexible. And you might have noticed that Swedes are not always flexible. If we
No.
say something, then that's how it's going to be.
Yeah. Square and form.
Yeah,
Square.
in concrete and steel.
Yeah.
And I had problem to kind of let that go when I met my wife. So I had my principles how a house had to be more or less. And she's like, no, we can do that tomorrow. We can do this. Oh, and I was like, no, this is how it has to be. So the culture differences we had in the beginning, of course, some of it has rubbed off on her now. So now she's actually planned her life, and she's doing
Right.
5S in her closets and stuff like that, in a way. So, but yeah, no, it was a lot of issues in the beginning, coming into a
Yeah.
Swedish lifestyle.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you, and it's look. This topic is really interesting. I've been talking about this for quite a long time with various guests, and we try to exchange and learn from each other actually,
Yeah,
because there is no silver bullet, there is no one fit solution. But when you see around, especially here in Scandinavia or in Europe, we see the percentage of divorce increasing, you know, and people giving up. They just pull the plug so easy. And this notion of fight for your marriage and fight for to be, especially when you have kids, yeah, which is not nice for them. Uh, and then we go back to the basic in terms of what can you do more, you know, since we're talking about leadership, since we're talking about and it's all go down to communication, to have an open dialogue, you know, and yeah, it's a different type of leadership, which I agree with you. It's a different challenge, but we are all humans, and quite often maybe some principle that works in the corporate world or the sports world, for example, can be applied in a family because yeah. I just wanted to get your Your
Yeah,
take and your point on that.
I think your point about communication is a very good point, because when I got married, of course I had a fiancée earlier and things like that, but I realized after I got married that one of the issues we had was the communication. I didn't always listen fully. She didn't always listen fully. So when I got married here, we communicate about everything. There is no secrets between us at all. There's open books, both sides.
Right.
So if something happens during the day that we don't feel to talk about, we say, I'm not good today, but I'll tell you when I'm ready. Then she knows that I will actually explain what happened in a day or two. And she doesn't push the subject. And same with her. I know that she will actually tell me what happened, if it was a loss of money or she had problem with the parents or whatever. But we have actually worked quite hard on the communication. So, knock on wood, but we actually haven't had a fight in almost 14 years of marriage.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. It's unheard of.
Yeah, and I love my mother-in-law as well, which I hear is very seldom. No, we're trying to keep it so we avoid all of these issues. And I was doing similar with my second in command in Indonesia. We were talking constantly. So if I had to go to hospital for 2 weeks, even if he was the finance guy in the company, he could actually substitute for me for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So he wasn't my successor because the owners had said successor has to be a technical person. But this guy I trusted. I knew that if he had issues, he would call me or he would call someone in Germany and get the answer. But he was going to hold the ship together if I was out. And so we communicated about everything that happened in the factory every single day. And we actually never had issues. And I think communication is one of the most important things when you're having a team.
I agree with you. So folks out there, married or no, communication is key, and stay away from the social media and the smartphones, because that takes our attention, especially I mean, you go to a restaurant or even people having dinner or lunch, people are glued on their smartphones, or even on holiday. You go on holiday, sorry for the word, bloody hell, it's everyone is there with their phones, and we lost that chat, that communication, and I think it's important. Björn, you mentioned AI will reduce the need for consultant, and you are one. So, what happens to leadership in that world of AI?
Actually, I think that the need of consultants is being reduced, because a lot of things you can get training materials and things from AI quite simple, but at the same time, I don't think that AI is going to take so many jobs that everybody is saying in the news. That 80% of the total workforce will lose their jobs. And what I see in my own business is that I increase my capacity quite a lot. For me, building templates, building training materials that has taken week or weeks before, I do it in half a day. Because now I'm start getting quite skilled on the AI. In the beginning, it took a long time to do it until you figure out how to use it. But I was talking to a friend of mine in Brazil, and they are implementing AI fully for all the reporting. So instead of having 5 planners, now they have 1. They have taken away a lot of the unnecessary work that people are sitting doing and use AI to automate it. Kind of putting in data when you can get it straight from machines and stuff. And we actually saw a guy I discussed this issue with a few days ago. He said we saw the same when they started to do 4.0 industry. When you start automating, you get all the data from the machines. Everybody said the same thing. We will have no production technicians. We will have much fewer operators.
Yeah.
But we still have the same operators, but we have more machines.
Yes.
So what my friend in Brazil said, and we were working for the same company. I was running Indonesia, he was running Brazil. And he said that if I have reduced the need for these clerical parts with 18 people, I need the people now, because now I can make so much more every day. So we just retrained them to new roles where they still are with the company. So he said, for the next 2 years, we will implement AI all over. But we are not going to lose a single person unless they want to leave, because our workload is increasing. We do more products continuously, but we have less people doing admin. So I think it will be similar for a lot of consultants will be redundant. That I believe, but I don't think that we will disappear out of the, because you need in coaching or consultant, you need kind of the human interface. And that I don't think in my lifetime that AI will be that good so they can actually take over that interface. But a lot of the junior consulting roles that sit and do reports and things, that will probably disappear. Yeah. I mean, I saw an example, a bad example, but one of the largest consulting companies had been assigned to do a report of a big company. They gave back the report, and they had quoted for a lot of man hours, and it was done by ChatGPT.
Which is tell me about it. I don't want to mention names like a big consulting firms which are quite known, and there is few of them, maybe 2-3 big names which everyone knows. I remember a report, 1 page, it's a minimum $800, between $800 to $1,200 a page. Which is ridiculous. Anyway, look, I believe AI is here and is here to stay. We should not be afraid. We just need to adapt and accept the change.
My mistake from the beginning was that I was completely against it. And my wife started to use it. She's more tech friendly than me. And suddenly she was sitting talking to her assistant, and I said, "You have an assistant? I didn't know that." ChatGPT has a name, so she has a person inside ChatGPT that is her PA, and she said, "It's so fantastic. You don't get it, Björn, because it's really helpful. I say I need to do this. Make sure that you remind me about this, and everything comes automatic." She said, "I get lazy in a way, but it helps me tremendously." So then when I saw the impact on her job, she's a hotel manager, how much it helps her, then I said, maybe I need to start looking at it. And to me, it's like, it's a fantastic tool. But you have to be careful, because you can be lazy. And my biggest worry is that people gets too lazy to actually learn the
Yeah.
subjects that they're doing.
Yeah.
So it's a balance between how much you're going to use it, because if ChatGPT can do a full document for your thesis in school, and a friend of mine in Sri Lanka, all his thesis was written by ChatGPT, and I said, "Have you read it?" He said, "No, I will read it because I don't trust it 100%." But he knew the subject, so he had kind of plugged in.
Yeah.
But he said, "Oh, it was good to 80%. I had to rewrite myself 20%." I said, "At least you read it, because most of the people are probably not doing it, so they take whatever comes out and then they put it in."
No, you have to check and double check, sometimes triple check, because quite often the system, it hallucinates.
Yeah.
Depend how you use it. I've seen it. I use AI on a daily basis, different platforms. I use almost 4 different platforms for various things. But then it's your ability as a person, as a human, to the way you interact with, the way you build it, the way you generate the prompt, and then when you have the result, you have look, my advice to everyone, because putting the prompt, you will get better to it. It's a practice. You practice, and then the minute you have the result, please check, double check, triple check before you post anything. And now I see it. Even the emails replies, people are automating the emails replies, and quite often they don't check what the system or the AI agent is doing on their behalf. I've seen it quite often. So yeah, but the positive side, it's from a time standpoint, it helped tremendously. And in the case of consultant or getting those report or analysis from a big consulting firms, which quite often cost a fortune, absolutely. Look, Björn, we can talk about this topic for days. I'm just mindful of the time. And now it's time for our lightning round. So let's have some fun.
You're listening to the Pre-Zero Sports Talk. For more conversations on sports leadership, faith, performance, and innovation from Sweden to the world, visit prezerosportstalk.com.
Yeah.
Ready for speedy Q&A?
Okay.
Excellent. Coffee, tea, or something else?
Coffee. I start every day with minimum 3 cups. That's the typical Swedish.
Yeah. Same with me. I can't function without coffee. So yeah. Morning person or a night person?
I'm actually both. I like staying up late because I'm very creative in the evenings, and then in the morning I like going up and do all the admin with emails and all of the kind of boring stuff, and I can do it when the wife is sleeping, so it's fixed when she wakes up. So I'm kind of a mixed. I sleep around 6 hours per night.
All right. One book that changed your thinking?
Leading by Character by Jim Lur. That book made a big change to understand the character part of the leadership, because no one talks about character in most. If you go out and you do any leadership classes a few years ago, character was never mentioned in any leadership course. There was not part of it.
Yeah.
Not even emotional intelligence was not really mentioned either, because leadership was a very structured thing. So when I read that book, it kind of, a lot of my thinking without really thinking or knowing that I was thinking about character kind of came very clear to me.
Yeah.
It's a really good book. If you haven't read it, you should read it.
No, I didn't. I read so many leadership books, but this one, no, I will.
This is a book that the owner of WeWork should have read.
Ah, okay.
It's about morals and ethical.
An ethic, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Best leadership advice you received?
Don't talk as much, listen more. That's probably the best advice, and that comes from Indonesia. That's where I failed when I kind of didn't really listen enough.
One habit every leader should build.
Self-awareness.
The country that taught you the most.
The country where I kind of saw leadership, understood leadership, that's Sri Lanka. The country that has taught me most is probably US. But in US, I spent over 10 years in US, and I was living up north and I was in south. I was traveling in almost every state in US. So I from a learning standpoint, I learned a lot in US, good and bad.
Yeah.
But from understanding leadership and the culture part, then Sri Lanka is the one that really hit.
What motivates you today?
Today, actually, what motivates me every day is to see people be able to do things that they didn't believe that they could do. If I help someone yesterday, and I can see today that they are able to do it, even if they believe that they couldn't do it, that motivates me. So a lot of things, as I speak to a lot of people here, and they say, no, I cannot do. And I said, just first believe in yourself, and then you look at what you have to do, and then you do it. You might fail, you might be successful, but you don't know until you have done it. And then they send the message, and they said, oh, dude, it wasn't that difficult.
I like the ease. I like the way you answered that question. Quite often, when I ask this question, what motivates you today? People they take time to think about it. So I like the way you answered it. Yeah. One word to describe leadership.
Oh, self-awareness. Self-awareness for me is, if you don't have it, you cannot be a leader.
Yeah.
You can have character, but you don't have self-awareness. Then you can still lead, but you will not be a very good leader. You will be a leader that playing games all the time to make the best thing for himself or herself. So to me, leadership, I've been thinking about it for a few weeks now, and leadership, it is self-awareness to me. Because if you can understand yourself, you can lead. If you don't understand yourself, you can lead, but not being a good leader.
Right. Something you still struggle with.
Patience. I'm a very impatient man.
Earlier you said that you had to learn to listen more.
Yeah.
And now it's patience. So.
Yeah, no, it goes hand in hand, because
Yes.
my impatience kind of cuts my listening time. When I start listening, and then I'm like,
Yeah, let's get to the point.
and that I have been known since more or less, for the last 40 years, people always say that patience is a virtue, which I always have a problem with. And my mother says, you have to learn patience. I said, I am patient today. And she's like, compared to where you were? Yes.
Yeah. Maybe it's wisdom, Björn,
Yeah.
with age.
Yeah. But also being around Thai people has given me a lot of learnings around patience, because they are very patient.
Right.
I mean, I know that I do a lot of things when I meet people that's not culture correct and stuff. I'm much better now, but in the beginning. But they are patient because they know that I'm not from here, and they are willing to kind of give me the opportunity to learn and do the right thing.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Nice.
I am better on the patient side, but my wife also agrees with my mother. I have improved, but there is still a way to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Patience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Success today versus 10 years ago.
To me, success is still the same. I haven't changed that. If I can help someone to grow their career or themselves, that's a success for me. That will never change.
Right. What keeps you hopeful, Björn?
Keeps me hopeful. There's always hope for everything. I don't know. I mean, my wife is the one that, as long as I have her, I'm always hopeful. She's like the gem of my life.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
And on that, Björn Vikard, thank you so much for joining us on the show and sharing your insights on leadership, systems, trust, and building something that lasts beyond the individual.
Thanks
you.
a lot. It was great being here.
Yeah. And for our listeners, I leave you with a few words from Peter Drucker. The best way to predict the future is to create it.
We want to thank you for joining our show. If you enjoyed this episode, we have more for you. You can now watch the entire episode on our YouTube and Spotify channels. While you're here, subscribe and don't forget to tap the bell. Visit prezerosportstalk.com to explore more conversations on sports, leadership, faith, performance, and innovation. From Sweden to the world. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and make a difference. We'll see you soon. Take care.